Someone call Joe Biden because we're going back to 2022. That's right. Chamber's back. If you take a look at the Sand City Classic pick rates, Chamber 33% that's seeing play on 5 of the 6 maps that got played in this tournament. Now I know what you're going to say. Oh, TMV, it's an off-season tournament. Oh, TMV, there's barely any teams here. Oh, TMV, blah, blah, blah. They're not taking it seriously. Well, that might all be true somewhat, but if you take a look at the pick rates of the top 5 agents, you might look at them and be like, oh, I recognize that. That looks like the meta. So Chamber being 6th here on 33%, take note. Take note of that fact, right? And I do think that this isn't just a fluke, right? Yeah, these teams probably are trying stuff out and whatnot, and, you know, maybe not taking it super seriously, but there's a reason that they're trying out Chamber, and it's because Chamber is in a very good position right now when you think about what the meta actually is. Because to me, there's 2 ways that the meta is basically going to go down, right? There is the double duelist meta, which obviously we've seen for a bit of time throughout 2025 in general. And in general, I think we're seeing perhaps more of a shift towards kind of the DRX style, the Waylay style with a Yoru as well. But double duelist in general is going to be pretty popular basically until Yoru gets, you know, pretty heavily nerfed, if I had to guess. So that is one direction that a lot of teams are going in. And if you think about particularly like the Waylay versions, but double duelist in general, if you think about like what they are good at, right? Like, how do they work? You know, double duelist comps tend to have, you know, kind of one big burst, right? And how well you do against double duelist often is going to come down to how well did you survive that big burst, right? And if you think about Chamber, he's perhaps the agent that is most capable of doing damage to the double duelist team and being able to survive it, right? Him and probably Yoru, but Yoru obviously is good no matter what. And especially the Waylay version, right? Because when you think about Waylay and how DRX are playing Waylay, you know, often is, you know, I'm going to dive in, saturate, TP out, right? Well, if you think about if you're a Waylay and you dive in, saturate, TP out, but you hit a Chamber who then also just TPs away and survives, well, you have used all of your utility then as the Waylay, right? That's all of your util gone in a round. And yeah, you've pushed the Chamber back, but now you just have an agent with no util left. Right, and you've potentially taken a bit of space and pushed the Chamber back, and that's good, but that's a lot of util to invest to just do that, right? That is a lot to, you know, just push a Chamber back. And so Chamber is in a good position for that reason, right? Against double duelist, he is a good option, potentially, you know, doing some damage and getting away. And then the second thing that I think will be kind of, you know, the meta direction is what we see from the pick rates in the Sand City Classic, which is Viper. Right, double controller with a Viper, which of course has been popular for a very long time at this point. But again, Chamber is a good answer to that because Viper against no Sentinel comps just destroys, right? You're in a lot of trouble if you don't have a Sentinel and there's a Viper wall constantly going up in your face and you have no idea what's going on, right? Viper against a normal Sentinel, though, is also a very good option because Viper will often be able to destroy those Sentinel setups either, you know, for free. And then once that Sentinel setup is down, well, then you're in the same position of like, well, now what, right? Because that Viper can keep putting up that wall up and down throughout the round, and you're potentially in some trouble again. So Viper is a very good option against kind of most of the things, but Chamber is a good option against Viper in particular. Obviously, you do have the trap, which again does help you some of the time, but Chamber has a different option to most agents as well, which is Chamber can get ahead of the Viper setup. Chamber can go and take an aggressive fight and potentially get out and kill the Viper. Right? That is not something that most agents can really afford to do a lot of the time, or if they do, it's an incredible risk. Whereas for Chamber, it's not an incredible risk. And so therefore, Chamber is in kind of a very interesting position in this meta right now, where he's kind of a good option against probably the 2 most common things that you're going to see. Now, that in and of itself doesn't make Chamber meta. Okay, Chamber, his pick rate isn't going to be above 50% or anything crazy like that. He's not going to become the meta himself, right? Particularly for those double duelist comps, I highly doubt a lot of teams will want to say, let's play double duelist and a Chamber, right? They probably feel like that's a bit too all in on one kind of idea. I doubt that they would want to go in that direction, particularly a lot of the time. You know, you're probably going to want some more information if you're playing like a double duelist comp from your Sentinel. So it's probably not going to be like the meta. He's not going to fit into a ton of like meta comps necessarily, But he will be, if you don't want to play the meta, he will be the best kind of anti-meta pick, if you get what I mean. He's a good option, an alternative to the meta, because he does well against essentially what's pretty good. And of course, Chamber is benefiting from the recent big patch as well, which is that there's just kind of less utility, there's less initiator utility, the cooldowns are longer on all utility, and that makes agents who have any sort of TP better overall, right? Because especially like if you can get out of situations, there's just less utility to be able to clear certain angles, so you're going to benefit from that and potentially get more kills from that. Also, guns like the Op and the Judge are going to get better, which again helps an agent like Chamber. So right now, kind of everything is pushing in kind of a Chamber direction. But there is a second thing we do need to talk about with Chamber, which is Veto. Because Veto, obviously, as an agent, is perhaps most similar to Chamber. And he is, you know, perhaps fulfilling somewhat of a similar niche of kind of the fighting sentinels, right? And when we talk about Veto, you know, we haven't seen a ton of Veto thus far. And that's, of course, because it's a new agent. People are learning how to actually play the agent. And Veto, unlike Chamber, maybe doesn't have that, you know, he's not as good as TPing away because you have to actually aim at where the TP is, and that can make it a bit limited at times, and sometimes you might not be able to escape, whereas with a Chamber you definitely could. But I do think that when people get better at Veto, like we kind of saw with Vyse last year, where it took some time for people to actually get good at Vyse, and Vyse actually got a little bit of a buff halfway through as well, which maybe we'll see with Veto, I don't know. But once people actually get good with Veto and learn the setups and that kind of thing, I do think that Veto is, similar to Chamber, in a good spot right now. Because Veto as well, I think, unlike Chamber, is more versatile and gives you more options as a whole. And his kit is perhaps a bit more balanced than Chamber's overall and gives you more options overall rather than Chamber. So I do think that once people start to kind of learn, you know, how to actually play Veto and the best setups for him, then we could see Veto kind of, you know, also take this role. And as an example here of kind of being versatile, I actually just finished watching the FPX versus Wolves game here in kind of Chinese off-season tournament. And FPX are running Veto. And what I mean about being versatile here is you'll see it with the FPX setup. Because if you take a look at this setup, this is how they were running a lot of their defense sides, which is actually having the Veto teleports be kind of across the map. So the Veto is out here playing over towards A, but you've actually got two teleports that allow him to get across towards B instead, right? Which is very interesting. And again, this is like part of the reason I think we, again, as people get more and more comfortable with Veto, I think we'll start to see Chamber maybe come down a bit and Veto go up a bit for this kind of counter meta pick. But Veto might fit more in general because he is more versatile and there's more things that you can do with him like this. You're given kind of more choice, I think, with an agent like Veto. But you'll see here as Wolves, you know, come out towards B instead and they start to realize there's a B hit, take a look at our Veto, right? Is able to TP across into mid and then is able to TP in towards B as well, right? So now we've actually got three people here, whereas, you know, normally we'd be looking at this Viper being in a bit of trouble here. Now this Veto is here to help as well, right? And again, this is just one of the ways that a Veto, you know, could be used. And I think that that flexibility of you could use it for being an aggressive TP and getting out of a certain angle, or you could use it like that. The FPX did a lot on that map of Corrode, which is just, you know, purely a rotate kind of thing and having multiple people across the map no matter what happens. So if you have a teleport, now is a good time for you. Yoru, Chamber, Veto, Omen. It's their time.